Have you ever walked past trash and seen a garden waiting to bloom? This isn't about fancy tools or perfect spaces. It's about transformation, using what you already have. Old bottles, broken drums, forgotten roots, all reborn with color, life, and purpose. Welcome to Verdant Dreams, where small yards become wild with beauty, and trash becomes treasure. This video is packed with ideas, each marked with timestamps so you can jump to what inspires you most. Got questions? Drop them in the comments, I read every one. If this moves you, don't just watch, create. And if you feel a connection, consider subscribing. Because maybe to you, I'm just another face on a screen. But behind this video is something real. Every view, every comment, every click, keeps a dream alive. Thank you for being here. Thank you for seeing me. In the heart of a humble backyard, where space is measured by heartbeats rather than hectares, an old rusty drum finds its second life. It no longer holds oil, but something far more precious: life, flavor, and color. With just a splash of pastel paint and a handful of soil, it transforms into a vibrant garden throne for leafy greens and blossoming herbs. Each drum planter sits proudly like a rustic sculpture, wrapped in colors that echo cottage charm: soft blues, cheerful yellows, and weathered mint greens. These hues aren't just decorative, they become part of the garden story, reflecting sunlight and setting the mood for a whimsical afternoon tea in the patio corner. Lettuces unfurl their ruffled edges, basil perfumes the air with its herbal notes, and kale stands tall, kissed by the early autumn breeze. Around them, a crown of marigolds and asters bloom like a royal frame, their petals dancing with every passing bee. It's more than just a vegetable patch, it's a poetic meeting between functionality and beauty. Children pass by, brushing fingers against the herbs as they giggle. Neighbors peek over the fence, marveling at how something once bound for the landfill could become the centerpiece of charm and flavor. The drums hold stories now, not of industry and waste, but of rebirth and resilience. This isn't a tutorial, it's an invitation. An invitation to look at trash with new eyes. To turn forgotten drums into guardians of garden goodness. To plant joy in the smallest spaces. And in doing so, to craft a garden that doesn't just grow food, but grows hope, color, and peace. Because sometimes, the most delicious harvest comes from the seeds we plant in the most unexpected places. There is something quietly magical about a fence that tells a story. Not of perfect symmetry or factory precision, but of character, contrast, and charm, the kind only found where nature and imagination meet. Along the rustic wooden fence of a tiny backyard, colors begin to bloom not from petals, but from plastic. Once tossed aside, these bottles now dance in the wind, their painted bodies shaped into tulips and daffodils, catching the sunlight in the soft hues of lavender, peach, and sky blue. No longer trash, they've become cheerful companions to the golden marigolds and asters swaying below. Between the floral plastic art, driftwood roots cling like memories, gnarled, wild, and full of texture. Each one a relic of a riverbank or forgotten shore, now serving as earthy anchors to a playful, colorful tale of revival. Their shapes are untouched, raw and honest, balancing the whimsical flair of painted bottle blooms with grounded natural beauty. Children trace their fingers along the edges, wondering if the butterflies on the fence can fly. Visitors pause to take photos, unable to look away from this tapestry of upcycled joy. It's not just a fence anymore, it's a frame for inspiration. In the hush of autumn afternoons, the fence becomes a living mural, changing subtly with the light and season. Chrysanthemums stretch toward the sun. Japanese anemones nod gently in the breeze. And in the quiet, the wind carries a message: nothing is ever truly wasted. This is not merely decoration, it is a philosophy in bloom. A belief that even the most ordinary things, even those thrown away, can be reimagined into beauty. That in the hands of a patient dreamer, a plastic bottle and a twisted root can become poetry on a wall. In gardens both big and small, fences no longer divide, they invite. They whisper stories. They bloom with possibility. In a small space where every inch matters, the air carries the scent of thyme and mint, not from store-bought pots, but from humble plastic bottles reborn with love. Here, the walls of a tiny yard become alive, transformed into fragrant vertical gardens. Old soda bottles, once forgotten under sinks and bins, now hang proudly like colorful lanterns. Cut open, painted in joyful tones, and strung with jute rope, they cradle herbs that whisper their stories in every breeze. A brush of wind releases the aroma of oregano and sweet basil. Morning light filters through the translucent bottle colors, casting soft glows over the marigolds below. In this corner, time slows. Each bottle becomes a hanging blessing, not just for culinary use, but as a testament to creativity blooming in small spaces. The garden sings in layers. Above, bottle planters hang like ornaments. Below, the soil is dotted with asters and anemones, offering blooms in every shade of purple and pink. Together, they form a living tapestry, a dance between the edible and the beautiful. Neighbors walking past lean in, enchanted. "What a clever idea," they say. But more than clever, it is purposeful. It speaks of thriftiness and care, of a refusal to waste, of turning the ordinary into the magical. This is more than a herb garden. It is an act of resistance against clutter, against boredom, against forgetting the beauty of small things. It invites butterflies. It sparks conversations. It nourishes both body and soul. In this garden, nothing is too small to matter. Not the herbs. Not the bottles. And certainly not the dreamer who imagined this vertical wonder into life. A hanging herb garden from discarded bottles may seem simple, but in its gentle presence, it teaches us that beauty, flavor, and purpose can grow anywhere, especially in the smallest of places. In a world where space is precious and time is fleeting, the idea of a vertical salad garden feels like a quiet revolution. A single upright drum, once used for storage or scrap, now stands as a monument to growth. Painted in cheerful tones, maybe a sky blue or soft terracotta, it breathes new life into what was once lifeless metal. Along its side, small cutouts become windows to abundance, layers of green upon green, as lettuce, arugula, and spinach peek through like dancers behind a curtain. This drum does not scream for attention. It whispers with confidence. Nestled into a patio corner or the edge of a small backyard, it offers freshness, functionality, and flair in one towering display. A true salad bar, not from a store, but from your own hands. Morning sun warms its surface as bees flirt with the nearby marigolds. The wind rustles the lettuce leaves with gentle applause. Around the base, chrysanthemums offer their golden and rust-hued blooms like an audience in admiration. Children crouch down to peek into the holes. "Can I eat this one yet?" they giggle. Each pocket of the drum holds a secret, a new taste, a new texture, a reminder that food doesn't have to come in plastic from a supermarket aisle. It can come from something you once thought was trash. This is more than a salad garden. It's a vertical canvas of sustainability. An artwork of seasons. A compact miracle made for city dwellers, tiny yard dreamers, and lovers of both color and crunch. In each painted stroke and every planted seed, the old drum becomes a storyteller. It speaks of resilience, reinvention, and the simple joy of harvesting your lunch with your fingertips. A salad garden that reaches upward is not just about growing greens, it's about lifting spirits, elevating beauty, and turning small corners into edible sanctuaries. At the edge of a small garden, standing tall like a beacon of bounty, an old drum finds its destiny. Once a forgotten vessel, now it becomes a tower of taste, painted bold and bright, brimming with life and delicious promise. From its sides, strawberry vines spill like green ribbons, their tiny red jewels hanging like rubies in the sun. Above them, cherry tomatoes climb upwards, wrapping their way around a rustic bamboo stake, proud and full of flavor. The drum breathes life from every angle, and the air hums with bees, lured by basil blossoms and the sweet scent of ripe fruit. Painted in vivid hues, sky blue, golden yellow, fire truck red, the drum brings both color and practicality. It stands firm through wind and time, welcoming the cool touch of autumn and warming itself beneath the afternoon light. This is a sculpture of sustenance, an ode to the creative gardener. Around the base, fallen maple leaves gather like a natural rug. A small crate overflows with today's harvest, plump tomatoes, juicy strawberries, fragrant herbs. This is not just a planter. It is a harvest column, a functional art piece, a garden within a garden, built for small spaces, made with a big heart. Neighbors passing by can't help but pause. That came from a drum, they ask, astonished. And yes, it did. It came from seeing not just what something is, but what it could be. In a world obsessed with newness, this tower is a reminder: beauty and nourishment can rise from what we already have. With paint, soil, and a touch of vision, even industrial leftovers can nurture life and joy. The tomatoes glisten, the strawberries tempt, and the gardener smiles. This drum tower is no longer waste. It is wonder. It is flavor. It is legacy. In the gentle hum of an autumn evening, a quiet defense begins to bloom. Not with fences or sprays, but with petals, bright, fragrant, and carefully planted in vessels born from waste. Along the garden's edge, a line of plastic bottles reborn as flower pots catches the golden light. Their surfaces, once dull and forgotten, are now brushed with cheerful colors: mint green, sunset orange, cottage pink. Inside each one, the guardians of the garden stand tall: marigolds, chrysanthemums, lemongrass, and anemones. Not only beautiful, but purposeful, these are the silent warriors against the buzz of mosquitoes. The bottles hang gently along fences, or sit proudly at the foot of patios, their colors mimicking the blooms they cradle. The fragrance drifts with the wind, weaving between stems, deterring pests and inviting butterflies instead. It is a subtle kind of magic, where trash becomes treasure, and every bloom brings both joy and protection. This is not a typical garden. It is a patchwork of resourcefulness, stitched together by color and intention. It is where practicality meets poetry, where the gardener thinks not only of beauty, but of comfort. A place where you can sit on a rustic bench, sip tea, and never once swat at a buzzing invader. Children play barefoot nearby, their laughter carried on the breeze. Guests compliment the vibrant decor, unaware that these pots were once discarded soda bottles. And the gardener smiles, knowing that with just a bit of paint, a few cuts, and some soil, something forgotten has found a new purpose. This is the power of a garden made by hand, with heart. A place where anti-mosquito flowers bloom from recycled vessels, proving that function and flair can walk hand in hand. So plant not just for beauty, plant for peace. And let your garden, no matter how small, become a sanctuary, not only for you, but for every bloom that dares to be both radiant and useful. Into the quietest corner of a garden, there's a sanctuary born not from wealth, but from wonder. A humble pergola stretches its arms skyward, draped in vines that bloom like poetry, purple anemones and golden mums nodding gently in the breeze. But it is not the structure alone that captures the heart. It is what surrounds and hangs beneath it. At the base, old roots, twisted, wild, once forgotten, now stand proudly, painted in muted shades of sage, lavender, and ivory. Once buried beneath the earth, they are now elevated, transformed into sculptural art, anchoring the corner with rustic elegance. Their knots and curves tell stories of age, of storms endured, and now, of beauty reclaimed. Above, plastic bottles, cut, carved, and painted, become lanterns. As the sun dips, each one glows softly, casting gentle light like floating fireflies. Pink, turquoise, amber, their colors ripple across the pergola like whispers. Once trash, now treasure, they shimmer with new life. This space is more than decoration. It is a pause. A place where one might sit in a wicker chair, warmed by tea and silence. Where birds chirp from the fence, and butterflies dance between blooms. It is where chaos slows, and creativity finds breath. Here, in the smallest of places, junk and nature entwine. Roots that once held trees now cradle flowers. Bottles that once held drinks now carry light. And all of it, every curve and sparkle, is made by hand, by heart. Neighbors ask how much it cost. The gardener laughs. Just time, paint, and imagination. Because this pergola corner isn't about money. It's about meaning. About transforming what's old into something that feels timeless. About giving roots and bottles, and maybe ourselves, a second chance to shine. So let the roots rise, and let the bottles glow. This is a corner for dreamers. And in its quiet radiance, it reminds us, beauty doesn't need to be bought, it only needs to be seen. What if the sea could speak in color? In the heart of a garden far from the shore, a quiet answer curls along the edges, not in crashing waves, but in shimmering plastic, reborn as art. Here, old plastic bottles are given a new calling. Cut, shaped, and painted in the colors of the sea, aqua, coral, sand, and deep blue, they trace the contours of flower beds like gentle waves lapping at a cottage beach. No longer symbols of waste, they have become messengers of wonder. As you walk the path, the edges catch the light. Each bottle, once discarded, now plays its part in a story of transformation. Their smooth curves mimic seashells. Their colors echo tidipools and sunsets. Among them bloom purple asters and golden marigolds, vibrant companions to this handmade shoreline. It's more than just edging. It's a tribute. A tribute to the ocean, to the planet, to the idea that even the smallest piece of trash can become a piece of joy. In a garden where space is limited, imagination flows freely. And the garden becomes not just a place to grow, but a place to remember what we can create, even from what was once thrown away. A child kneels, running fingers along the blue edges. It looks like the ocean, they whisper. And it does. It truly does. This is no illusion. It is real. Real like the breeze that moves the anemones. Real like the rustling leaves of fall. real like the gentle pride of the gardener who crafted it all with careful hands and a hopeful heart. In the end, this recycled plastic fence edging isn't just decor. It is a tide that rises in beauty. A reminder that color, care, and creativity can reshape not only gardens, but perspectives. And as you stand there, surrounded by blooms and seascape hues, you realize, this garden isn't just tended, it's treasured. In a backyard where time seems to pause, tall bamboo poles rise like sentinels, steady, simple, timeless. But what makes them magical is what wraps around them, the twisted memory of trees, old roots, reborn as art. Here, nature sculpts its own stories. Bamboo and roots, both humble and strong, are combined to form garden totems, vertical installations that celebrate the beauty of wild materials and the rhythm of the earth. Each one is different. Each one holds secrets. Around their base, marigolds bloom like golden fire. Asters offer their purple petals to the breeze. Ivy reaches upward, winding along the aged wood, while hidden in carved hollows are bursts of sedum and sprays of anemones. What once clung to soil now touches the sky. These aren't just planters. They are totems of transformation, where junk becomes design, and raw nature becomes elegant structure. The bamboo stands firm, tied in places with frayed jute, while the roots curl like ancient signatures. Together, they whisper something primal, something beautiful. Children call them tree guardians. Visitors ask where to buy them, but they are not bought. They are made from the forgotten, the leftover, the overlooked. This is gardening not just with tools, but with soul, where creativity sees potential in decay, where a root is not a mess, but a masterpiece, where even a cracked bamboo pole can carry the spirit of growth. In the cool hush of autumn, the totems cast long shadows. Wind rustles the leaves. Light dances across twisted wood, and the gardener, standing among these vertical wonders, smiles, knowing this space, this creation, holds more than flowers. It holds intention, texture, memory. A backyard doesn't need to be big to be bold. Just let it rise, one root and one stalk at a time. And let your garden not only bloom, but speak. In the heart of the garden, where the air feels thick with scent and the breeze plays music through the leaves, stands a gazebo, not grand in size, but rich in charm. And wrapped around its wooden bones, a celebration of junk reborn as joy. Plastic bottles, once tossed without thought, now sway gently in the wind. Each one painted with loving detail, a stroke of bronze here, a streak of sage green there, a hint of gold catching the sun. Cut into spirals, petals, and leaves, they glimmer like stained glass caught in motion. But it is the marigold vines that breathe soul into the structure. Trained with care, their tendrils weave through the bottle art, softening plastic edges with bursts of orange bloom. The vines embrace the bottles like old friends, one wild, one tamed, and together, they tell a story of growth and transformation. Under this canopy of contrast, peace lives. It's where someone might sip evening tea, listening to the chime of upcycled art. Where petals fall like confetti onto aged floorboards. Where old things, given new purpose, frame moments of quiet magic. Children reach up to spin the bottle spirals. Guests marvel, "What a beautiful idea, you made this." And the gardener, a little bashful, nods. Because this isn't just a gazebo accent. It's an act of rebellion against waste. A gentle revolution that says, beauty doesn't need to be new, it just needs to be noticed. The marigolds climb higher each day, and the bottles spin slower in the cooler autumn air. But even as the season turns, this corner of the garden stays alive, with color, movement, purpose. And so, from junk and vine, from bottle and bloom, rises something unforgettable, a side of a gazebo that doesn't just shelter, it sings.